Let's work with adding and subtracting decimals. We might be asked to find the sum. And this is 9 62/100 plus 3 7/10. What you need to remember when you're adding or subtracting decimals is to line up those place values. So we line up our decimal points for sure, and you'll notice that our ones place and our tenths place are lined up. And what I like to do is I like to put a 0 there when I'm adding and subtracting. That way I know I have the same number of decimal places after the decimal point in each of my addends. There. And then so I have 2 plus 0, which is 2, 6 plus 7, which is 13. I place the 3 and I regroup the 1. 1 plus 9 is 10, plus 3 is 13, and my decimal point comes straight down. So that I have 9.62 plus 3.7 equaling 13.32. Now my answer seems reasonable to me in that I was adding a 9 number with a 3 number, which I would have gotten 12, but I'm also adding 6/10 and 7/10 together, which is about 1 3/10. So 12 and 1 3/10 does equal about 13 32/100. Given another problem, this is 56 23/100 minus 1 6/100. And so our answer, if we look at this here, should be somewhere around 56 minus 1, if we were thinking about what these rounded to with their whole numbers. And then so that should be our estimated answer. So our exact answer should be somewhere close to that. Again, I'm going to line up our digits. The ones place gets with the ones place, tenths with the tenth, and hundredths with the hundredths. I start with the hundredths place, and I go 3 minus 6. I can't do that, so the 2 becomes a 1, and the 3 becomes 13, or 13/100. 13/100 minus 6/100 is 7/100. We've got 1/10 minus 0 is still 1/10. 6 minus 1 is 5, and 5 comes straight down there. So my exact answer there is 55 17/100, which is very close to that 55 that I had estimated this difference to earlier. One more thing to remember as you are adding and subtracting decimals is to make sure to line your problem up and down. You see that I've lined up the ones place, and I've lined up the tenths place, and 8.1, or 8 1/10, does not have a hundredths place, so I can add a 0 there. I'll add a 0 there as my placeholder so that when I am subtracting, I do this subtraction properly. This way, when I'm subtracting, I have 0 minus 5. I can't do that, so the 1 becomes a 0, and the 0 becomes 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. 0 minus 6, I can't do that. 8 becomes a 7, 0 becoming a 10. 10 minus 6 is 4. Decimal point comes straight down, and 7 minus 1 is 6. So my exact answer here, and I'll write this in, let's say green, is going to be 6 45/100. Now, earlier I was talking about an estimate to check. This is 8, this is 2 for the nearest whole number, and 8 minus 2 is 6. So it looks reasonable to me. It looks reasonable to me in that I was subtracting a little bit more here because I went up from my rounding here. And that's why this is the exact answer is more than my exact answer. I'm sorry, my exact answer is more than my estimated answer. It's time for you to try. We have 2 problems set up here. Please go ahead and write them down and carefully solve them. Do hit pause. For that first problem, we set it up as 3.60 so that we have the same number of decimal places after the decimal point. 0 minus 2, can't do that. 6 becomes a 5, 0 becomes a 10. 10 minus 2 is 8, 5 minus 1 is 4, and 3 minus 2 is 1. And make your decimal point nice and clear so you know what that number is. 3 and 6 tenths minus 2 and 12 hundredths equals 1 and 48 hundredths. If we estimated it, 4 minus 2 is 2. And so since we went up by almost a half there, that's why our estimated answer is so far away from our exact answer. For the other one here, we have 4 and 79 hundredths plus 8 and 6 tenths. So I'm going to go ahead and line up our digits, lining up our decimal places as well, and I'll place a 0 after the 8 and 6 tenths, after the 8.6. That way our digits line up and we have the same number of places after that decimal point. 9 plus 0 is 9. 7 plus 6 is 13. 3 regroup a 1. 1 plus 4 is 5, and plus 8 is 13. Place our decimal point, and that there is our answer. Give yourself a pat on the back if you got the correct answers, and a smaller pat if you only got one of the correct answers. Here's the key to working with these types of problems. What you want to do is you want to make sure to write them vertically. You also really need to make sure to line up those decimal places. In the instances where it is they do not have the same number of places after that decimal point, go ahead and place a 0 as a placeholder so that we have the hundredths place lining up and the tenths place and the ones place all lining up. At that point, you can go ahead and do your addition or subtraction. In this case, this is a subtraction problem, making sure to show your regroups. 2 becomes a 1, 0 becomes 10, and 10 minus 3 is 7. 1 minus 1 is 0, 8 minus 2 is 6, and then 1 comes straight down there, and we must place our decimal point. I always think that it is key to think whether your answer is reasonable as well. So if we had about 18, and this is our estimate here, minus 2, that equals 16, which is close to our exact answer. And you see we actually have it right here as 0.2 minus 0.13, or 0.20 minus 0.13. Yep, that's the 7 hundredths that we were talking about here. And that's why these two numbers are 7 hundredths away from each other. So that's all you need to know about working with decimals and adding and subtracting them.